Denouement Gestu, in honor and in recognition of your many accomplishments and your continued support to the LGBT community here at Georgetown as an ally, I present to you this token of our appreciation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Good evening, everyone gathered here. Thank you for coming. It's a tall order when Denouement Gestu opens for you. But I'm really honored to have two other immigrants here on stage, especially because I was recently naturalized as an American citizen. To begin, I would like to ask you all a question. Who gets to claim that they belong to the queer community? When you think about what constitutes the LGBTQ community in America, do you think of same-sex marriage, a privilege that is available to the elites of LGBT society? Or do you think about the plight of transgender women of color who are being killed at an alarming rate? Or I could begin with this tagline I got all my 4 years here on the hilltop. Wow, how is your English so good? You probably don't realize how exasperating such questions are for an immigrant graduating with honors in English literature. A person who grew up in Pakistan where the official language is actually English, and where education is mostly Eurocentric. Not to mention that the very discipline of English studies was established by the British Raj in India to civilize the savage natives. So here I am, your civilized Indian sahib. And in the words of Macaulay from his Minute on Indian Education, Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. The funny thing is that I am a cultural product of both British and American imperialisms. And yet it is the colonizers who will not let me claim this imposed cultural currency. But what does all this have to do with being LGBTQ at Georgetown or in America at large? Well, the exclusion of people of color from English discourse is a corollary to the exclusion of people of color from queer spaces and narratives. At a place like Georgetown, even where the director of the LGBTQ Center is a small but formidable South Indian woman, it is mostly white, able-bodied, upper-class, cisgender men who become the face of the LGBT community. I'm here to complicate and push back against the narrative. I'm a Pakistani, lower-middle-class, cancer-surviving, immigrant Muslim writer who also happens to be queer. I come from the land of Sufi poetry, in which divine love is often couched in the language of same-sex desire. A land where men can hold hands in public and no one bats an eye. Because in that land, same-sex desire goes along with camaraderie and affection, not with snobbery and cattiness. A land where there exists a centuries-old tradition of transgender communities, and where a third gender is actually codified in law. It was the British who first attempted to eradicate transgenders in India because they saw them as a breach of public decency. When in doubt, always blame the British. Even when coming from such a rich heritage, queer Muslims like myself in South Asia and the Middle East find ourselves trapped between the damnation of the ultra-religious, literalist right wing on the one hand, and the paternalistic Islamophobic Western liberals who want to save us, as if the ritual of coming out were universal queer truth. As Salim Haddad writes in a recent article for the Daily Beast, even amongst those who may feel at home in their gay identity, the notion of publicly coming out rings hollow in a culture where who you share your bed with is a private matter. So when I came to Georgetown, I felt that my brownness and Muslim identity often disqualified me from being a part of the largely white, cisgender, able-bodied, upper-class gay community at Georgetown, or even in the larger DC area. Throughout my time on the hilltop, I have had to fashion my own niche, one made mostly of straight South Asians. It is a shame that I resort to making myself the token gay man in such a clique because the token Muslim and a coterie of queers is even harder and identity to navigate, mostly because a queer Muslim is often dismissed as a contradiction in terms. But I am here with my body and my soul to say that it's not. I am here and I'm here to stay. But let's talk about another aspect of my identity. I first entered the LGBTQ Center as a cancer patient in a wheelchair who had to withdraw from 3 courses his first semester due to a severe depressive episode. I could barely walk more than a block without my knees swelling up due to a side effect of the chemo, osteonecrosis. The depression worsened when I came to the realization that DC was possessed by the demon of physical fitness, and that this obsession was compounded 1,000-fold in the gay community. It was all optics, an obsession with well-chiseled musculature and a particular type of aesthetic. Be mask, no chubs, no femmes, be fit, be white. These are the stringent hoops you must jump through to participate in intimacy. I began to feel even more marginalized in an already marginalized community. It is as if the sight of or possibility of disability scares us, not to mention the stigma against HIV-infected persons. Once, a member of this very community accused me of playing the cancer card in a conversation. Another stopped seeing me after I told him that I was taking medications as prophylaxis for opportunistic infections that might arise due to my weakened immune system. Can we queer Hoyas claim to be men and women or gender non-conforming people for others if we cannot empathize with the plight of others? What does it say about us when we preach intersectionality but actively exclude Black, brown, Muslim, and disabled bodies? I am now in remission from cancer, no longer in a wheelchair, and possibly on my way to Columbia University to study narrative medicine. The wonders of modern medicine are legion. I am evidence of that. But it is time we bring empathy into the hard sciences. Again, what does it say about us Hoyas when the Georgetown School of Medicine does not do enough to inform its students about the specific healthcare needs of gay and transgender people? I eventually want to be a physician writer, and I think my entire life, especially my 4 difficult years at Georgetown, have been leading up to this endeavor, an endeavor that is colored in no small measure by my experiences as a brown Muslim queer man. The color of my skin, how the medical gaze encounters my body, how the orthodoxies of culture and creed view me, all these cannot be divorced from my queerness. I want to tell future LGBT students at Georgetown to not be carried away by their gay peers' emphasis on physical perfection, what I call queer pressure. There's no one way to be LGBT at Georgetown or even in the world. Don't get caught up in the femme-shaming, xenophobic, anti-intellectual, muscle-manic, fragile masculinity of what people say being LGBT is all about. The surface doesn't last. The body, no matter how attractive, is a treacherous entity where a single cell can multiply uncontrollably and wreak havoc on all order. I've been there. I know. Thank you very much.